I don't remember my first steps, or my first words, or my first birthday, but I remember the first time my mother said, "You ruined my life." I was 5. I had spilled a glass of orange juice on her heels, not on purpose, just clumsy and excited because I wanted her attention. She looked down at me, sighed with the weight of the world, and whispered like I was a curse. "God, if I hadn't had you, I'd be in New York right now, working in fashion, living." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, holding the empty glass in my hand, and tried not to cry. That was how most of my childhood went. No slaps, no screaming fits, just constant cold disappointment. My name is Lena Rivera, and my mother, Vanessa Rivera, was the kind of woman people admired from a distance. She was beautiful, polished, and always smelled like expensive perfume and disapproval. She told people I was her miracle baby. She told me I was her accident. "I had dreams, Lena, big ones. Then you came along." She never hit me. She never hit me. Her words were sharp enough to cut me open, and precise enough to make me believe I deserved every wound. Growing up, I learned early that silence kept the peace. I ate alone. I dressed myself. I learned to stay out of the way when she had guests slipping into the kitchen or hiding in the linen closet, just to avoid embarrassing her. But I wasn't completely alone. There was Marta. Marta wasn't blood. She was hired help. An older woman from El Salvador who barely spoke English when she first arrived to my mother. She was furniture to me. She was a lifeline. She brushed my hair every morning. She made me lunch when my mom forgot I needed one. She taught me how to braid, how to pray, and how to sit up straight no matter who looked down on me. She called me Mi Estrella, my star. I called her home at school, kept my head down. I did my homework, got good grades, never invited anyone over. What would I show them? A house full of mirrors and silence. My classmates had dance recitals, soccer moms, messy family photos. I had pristine countertops, arranged flowers, and a mother who called me her career-ending souvenir one night when I was 8. I asked her if she loved me. She was on the phone painting her nails, talking about some event she was co-hosting. She looked at me like I'd asked whether the sky was green. "Lena," she said flatly, "of course I do. Don't be so needy." And that was it. No hug, no smile. Just don't be so needy. I went to my room. I closed the door and I cried into the blanket Marta had sewn for me, one with stars stitched. Into the corners, I learned not to ask again. Some mothers give birth. Others only give blame. Subscribe to follow Lena's journey from forgotten to unforgettable. When I look back on my childhood, there are almost no photos of me smiling, unless Marta took them. She had this little disposable camera she kept hidden in her apron pocket. She said pictures helped her remember the people she loved in case they ever disappeared. "The world forgets quiet people. Mi Estrella. So we keep little pieces," she'd whisper. And she always whispered. Maybe because she was afraid of my mother, or maybe because she knew the truth. Sometimes the softest voices leave the loudest echo, while Vanessa focused on fundraising galas and posing for society magazines. Marta focused on keeping me alive. She made pancakes on test days, always in the shape of stars. She sewed my school uniform by hand when my mother forgot to order one. She stayed up with me the night I had a fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit, placing a cool cloth on my forehead while my mom slept in a hotel across town. She was always there, and I didn't even realize at the time how rare that was. Vanessa treated Marta like wallpaper. She barked orders, slammed doors, once, when Marta accidentally broke a wine glass while clearing the table. Vanessa rolled her eyes and snapped. If I wanted broken things in my house, I'd look at my daughter. I was 10. I heard every word. Marta didn't flinch. She simply picked up the glass and whispered, "Some broken things shine brighter when the light hits them." I started copying Marta without knowing it. The way she tucked her blouse, the way she smiled with her eyes, the way she stayed calm when the world was cruel. She never raised her voice, never fought back, but somehow her kindness made her the strongest person I knew. One day, when I was 11, I asked her, "Why do you stay?" She looked at me for a long moment, then placed her hand gently on my cheek and said, "Because you're still here, and that's enough for me." From then on, I stopped calling her the maid in my mind. I started calling her Mama, not to her face, not out loud, but in my heart. She was the mother I had chosen. The years passed slowly. Middle school, high school. Loneliness layered on loneliness. But Marta was always my constant. My mother forgot. Birthdays. Marta made cupcakes. My mother criticized my body. Marta stitched a dress that made me feel like a flower. My mother reminded me I ruined her life. Marta reminded me I was one. Then came the night everything changed. It was my 18th birthday. Vanessa didn't say a word. She left early in the morning for a charity auction. No note, no gift, not even a glance. I came home from school and went straight to my room, but there, on my desk, was a plate with one homemade cupcake topped with a single, yellow star-shaped candle. Marta stood in the doorway smiling. "It's not fancy," she said, "but I hope it's sweet." I tried not to cry. I really did. But the first tear slipped down as I said, "You're the only one who remembered." And she said, simply, "I always will." The woman she called Mama had no title, but gave her everything. Subscribe now, because soon Marta will give her more than love. To the outside world, Vanessa Rivera was elegance in heels. People at church whispered about her grace. The local newspaper once called her a pillar of refined womanhood. She was on boards. She hosted fundraisers. She knew how to smile with her whole face, just not when she looked at me in public. She clutched my hand like I was her prized accessory. "This is Lena," she'd say, "my miracle baby." Doctor said I couldn't conceive. Poof, she arrived. Strangers would smile, pat my head, say how lucky I was to have such a glamorous mother. I smiled back, but I knew better. Behind the scenes, I was a mistake she put makeup over. At home, she didn't call me her miracle. She called me her burden. "You don't know what I gave up for you. If you think I wanted this life, in this town, I should have left you with your grandmother when I had the chance." I used to wonder what she'd be like if I hadn't been born. Would she be in New York like she always claimed? Would she be happy? Eventually, I stopped asking those questions because the answer was always the same. I wasn't part of the life she wanted. I was the reason she didn't have it. But Marta, she never played pretend. She didn't wear pearls or throw fundraisers. She just worked and loved quietly once. At a charity event, I stood in the corner while Vanessa gave a speech about single motherhood. She spoke of sacrifice, of love, of how she fought for her daughter's future. And the audience clapped like she was some kind of saint. I stood there in my too tight shoes, trying not to laugh or cry. That night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked her, "Why? Do you lie about us?" She didn't even look up from removing her makeup. "People like a good story," she said. "I give them one. But what about me? What about the truth?" She met my eyes in the mirror. Truth doesn't pay for gala tables. Later that week, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. "Honestly, if I didn't have that girl, I'd be designing in Paris. But no, I'm stuck doing events for local hospitals. She's the weight I never wanted." She didn't know I was listening from the hall. She didn't care. I went to Marta's room that night, didn't say a word, just sat on her floor with my knees pulled to my chest. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just brought me a blanket and sat beside me. No speeches, no pity, just presence. That was Marta. She didn't save me by storm. She saved me by staying. She gave the world a show, what her daughter saw behind the curtain. Subscribe soon, the mask will crack. Some people say turning 18 means freedom, but for me, it just meant that no one had to pretend anymore. Vanessa didn't even fake a smile that morning. She was on the phone, pacing in heels, complaining about the caterers for her foundation's brunch. I stood by the door with my bag on my shoulder. "I'm leaving for school." She glanced at her watch and It's my birthday. She waved a hand like I'd told her it was raining. You want a trophy for surviving this long? I walked out the door. Not a hug. Not a have. A nice day. Not even a goodbye. At school, a teacher handed me a folded card. Inside to one of the brightest minds I've taught. Happy 18th. I almost cried, but I didn't want to mess up my makeup. I had done it myself, just for me. I didn't expect a party, but I guess I expected something. When I came home that evening, the house was quiet. No balloons, no dinner, no mom. Just silence until I stepped into my room, and there on my desk was a plate, a single cupcake, vanilla, with yellow frosting and a star-shaped candle already lit. Marta stood beside it, smiling, her hands folded in front of her apron. Make a wish, me Estrella. I stared at the candle. Tears blurred the flame into a golden blur. I wish I could stay with you forever. Marta leaned in and kissed the top of my head. You always will. But the moment didn't last. Vanessa slammed the front door minutes later, heels clicking like gunshots through the foyer. Marta, where's my dress for the gala? Then she saw the candle, the frosting, the tiny moment of warmth. And her face changed, tight, sharp, bitter. Really? Cupcake? You're spoiling her like she's some orphan. Marta didn't reply. She never did. But I stood. For the first time, I looked my mother in the eye and said, she remembered. My birthday. You didn't. She rolled her eyes, turned away. You think she cares? She gets paid to pretend. Marta flinched. I saw it. The smallest jerk of the shoulder, like a slap she refused to show. I turned to her, angry now, not at Marta. At the lie. Is that true? Are you pretending? Marta blinked once, then pulled something from her pocket. A folded piece of paper, soft at the edges, nearly torn down the middle from how often it had been opened for you. I wrote it long ago. I was waiting for the right day. She handed it to me. I opened it slowly. It was written in her careful, looping Spanish. She'd translated every line underneath in English. Me, Estrella. You are the light I never gave birth to, but always knew was mine. You shine even when no one claps. You rise even when no one lifts you. I may never be called your mother, but you are my daughter. And if someday I'm gone, just remember you were loved in silence, but deeply. Always. I couldn't hold the tears back anymore. I didn't even try. She called her maid. Lena called her mama. And soon the world would call her something else. Subscribe to witness the power of chosen love. I spent my senior year quietly building an escape route. Good grades, part-time. Job at the library. Essay contests. Scholarship. Applications. While other kids dreamed of prom and parties, I dreamed of dorm rooms and a lock on the door my mother didn't have a key to. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted out. One spring afternoon, I opened an email. Congratulations, Lena Rivera. You have been awarded the Chancellor's Academic Scholarship, covering full tuition and housing. I didn't scream, didn't jump. I stared at the screen as my hands started to shake. For the first time in my life, something opened for me, and I had walked through the door myself. I told Marta first. She was folding towels in the laundry room. I didn't even get the words out fully before she threw her arms around me. Me, Estrella, she whispered. You did it. You found your wings. Then she reached into her apron and pulled out an envelope, soft, weathered. Inside, $500 in cash. It's not much, she said. I've been saving it. For your bus ticket. For books. For toothpaste. For freedom. I cried like a child in her arms. Not because of the money, but because someone had planned for my future. Vanessa didn't even ask where I was going. When I told her about the scholarship, she shrugged. So, you think a dorm bed makes you better than me? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have words, but because they weren't worth wasting. Move-out day came in August. The house felt colder than ever, like it already knew I wasn't coming. Vanessa sat at the kitchen table flipping through a fashion magazine, her coffee untouched. I stood in the doorway with my suitcase. "I'm leaving. You want a goodbye party?" "I just wanted you to care." She looked up, eyes bored. "I cared once, before you existed." I turned away, but as I reached the door, I felt arms wrap around me. Marta, she held me, tighter than anyone ever had. "Go build your life. I'll always be here." I pulled back, wiping my eyes. "I'll come back for you. I swear." She smiled. "You already saved me. Me, Estrella." And with that, I walked into a world that had never felt ready for me, but finally belonged to me. She escaped the house that never loved her, but the one who did, she left behind. Subscribe, because this story's not over yet. 3 years passed. I built a life quietly, steadily. A dorm room that smelled like books and safety. A part-time job at the campus cafe. Professors who said I had promise, friends who liked me without knowing my history. I called Marta every Sunday from the payphone outside the library. She always answered on the first ring. Me, Estrella. Her voice always calm, always warm, always home. Then one Sunday, she didn't pick up. The next day, still nothing. By Tuesday, I was panicking. Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang. A hospital number. "Marta has been admitted." The nurse said, "Heart complications. You're listed as her emergency contact." That hit harder than anything my mother had ever said to me. Emergency contact. She had no one else, just me, and I was hours away. I got on the first bus home. 6 hours later, I was by her bedside, hand in hers, blinking back tears. She looked so small in that hospital bed, smaller than I ever remembered. But when she opened her eyes, she smiled. "You came." "Of course I did," I said, choking back emotion. "I told the nurses my daughter would come. They didn't believe me. That broke me. I am your daughter." She squeezed my hand. "I never wanted anything from life, me, Estrella. But if God gave me one gift, it was watching you grow." She paused, struggling for breath. "You shine, even through pain." That night, I stepped out of the room to breathe. Vanessa was there in the hallway. Perfect hair, designer coat, lips tight like she'd sucked on bitterness. "I suppose I should say thank you," she said flatly. "For what?" I asked. "For coming back. I don't have time to deal with dying maids." That was the last thing she said before turning and clicking down the corridor. I went back to Marta's room. She was asleep now. I sat beside her, held her hand, and whispered. Stories she once told me, fairy tales in Spanish and broken English. I stayed all night and at dawn with the softest sigh. Marta was gone. She didn't die alone. She died with her daughter holding her hand. She lost the only mother she ever had, but her real journey begins now. Subscribe because Marta's legacy is about to echo louder than blood. The morning after Marta's funeral, the house was silent in a way that felt unnatural, not peaceful, not grieving, just empty. Vanessa didn't attend the service. She claimed she had a migraine. But I knew the truth. She didn't think a maid deserved a funeral. I stood at Marta's grave alone, knees in the soft dirt, tracing her name on the stone with my fingers. Marta Alvarez, beloved by those who truly saw her. It wasn't much, just something I scribbled down through tears when the funeral director asked what to engrave. But it was true. Marta had been invisible to so many, but not to me. 3 days later, I received an unexpected call. "Miss Rivera, this is Martin and Lawton, your grandmother's estate attorneys. We'd like you to attend a private will reading." My chest tightened. My grandmother passed 2 weeks ago. We were instructed to contact you specifically. I hadn't spoken to my grandmother, Vanessa's mother, since I was 10. She had been stern, cold, and distant, but always watchful and clearly. More aware than any of us knew. The will reading was held in a high-rise office downtown. Vanessa was already seated at the table when I arrived. Silk gloves, oversized sunglasses, and fake composure. She barely looked at me. So nice of you to show up now that there's money involved. I sat down without a word. The lawyer cleared his throat and began. Per the last will and testament of Judith Rivera, the following distribution is to take place. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, smirking like a woman moments away. From collecting a fortune, who else would she leave it to? She muttered. Ms. Rivera, the lawyer continued, you are to receive a trust fund containing $5,000, reserved strictly for medical emergencies. Vanessa blinked. What? The remainder, the estate valued at $3.8 million, including property, assets, jewelry, and savings, is hereby awarded to Lena Rivera. The room froze. What? Vanessa leapt to her feet. You can't be serious. This must be a mistake. That old witch hated everyone. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. There is a recorded video if you'd like confirmation. He pressed play. My grandmother appeared on screen, thinner. Then I remembered her voice raspier, but her tone sharp. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And Vanessa, if you're surprised by this decision, you shouldn't be. You used your child as a scapegoat for your own failures. You neglected her. And you treated Marta like garbage, even though she raised Lena with more love than you ever managed. She looked into the camera. Lena, my dear, I saw more of myself in you than I ever admitted. You fought for your future. You held your dignity in silence. This inheritance is not just money. It's recognition. I stared at the screen in shock. Vanessa stood, trembling, a storm building behind her makeup. You think you deserve this? She hissed. Marta didn't even belong here. Q, you're just a reminder of every mistake I made. I stood slowly, looked her straight in the eyes. You told me I ruined your life, so I'll make sure your life doesn't profit from mine. Then I walked out of the room, not a penny poorer, but finally rich in the one thing I'd never had before: power. She inherited more than money. She inherited the truth. Subscribe to see what she does with it. 2 days after the will reading, I stood at the balcony of my grandmother's house, now legally mine, overlooking a manicured garden that had once been off limits to me. The roses were still blooming. The same ones Vanessa never let me touch as a child, always scolding me. This garden is for guests, not for little brats with muddy shoes. Now, I could trample the whole thing if I wanted, but didn't feel victorious, not yet. The city was already buzzing. It didn't take long for the news to leak that Vanessa Rivera, the face of Rivera events and elegance, had been cut out of her own mother's will. Worse, that her burden of a daughter had inherited it all. I started getting emails from magazines, interview requests. Go. All taken by Marta, all saved by my grandmother, and on the back of one, written in faded pen, she grow up to be better than both of us. I pray I live long enough to tell her. I covered my mouth, sobbing quietly, knowing she never got the chance. But I had the chance now, and I knew exactly what to do with it. The next week, I called a press conference. Yes, a real one, outside the Rivera Foundation headquarters. The same steps where Vanessa had once smiled and waved to cameras. Giving away money that didn't belong to her and compassion she didn't possess. I stood in front of the reporters in a black suit Marta would have said made me look like a senator. I didn't tremble, didn't blink. I read a statement. My name is Lena Rivera. I was once called an accident, a burden, a mistake. But I was also once held by a woman who made me believe in quiet love. Her name was Marta Alvarez. She was my nanny, my maid, my protector, and my real mother. She was never paid fairly, never treated kindly, and never acknowledged publicly. So today, I am honoring her the way no one ever did. I hereby donate 75% of my inheritance, including properties and liquid assets, to establish the Marta Alvarez Foundation for Domestic Workers and Daughters of Disgrace. It will fund education, housing, and legal protections for immigrant women and girls raised without love. Cameras clicked. Reporters gasped. And then I delivered the line I had rehearsed for days. My mother once said I ruined her life. so I decided I wouldn't fund it. By that evening, the video had gone viral. Twitter, TikTok, morning news. Thousands of comments poured in. She turned pain into purpose. Marta is the real hero. Vanessa, who? Lena's the legacy. I didn't smile for any of it. I just walked through Marta's old neighborhood the next morning, quietly meeting with families she had helped, girls she had mentored, neighbors who remembered her kindness. I told them the foundation would be based there and that they could help run it. It wasn't charity, it was correction, Vanessa. Meanwhile, erupted. She sent me 5 texts in a row. You ungrateful brat. You stole what was mine. You made me look like a joke. Undo it now. Then came the letter from her lawyer, a desperate attempt to challenge the will. But the documents were airtight, signed, recorded. Nota RIZD. My grandmother had made sure of that. The case was dismissed in a day, and suddenly, Vanessa Rivera was not the queen of society. She was a woman without a mansion, without money, without Marta to make her life livable. Poetic. Justice. But even then, I didn't feel joy. I just felt relief. I had done what Marta never could. I had spoken loudly for both of us. She didn't keep the fortune. She rewrote the legacy. Subscribe to see how love, not blood, built something immortal. The day after the press conference, I woke up to 4,000 unread messages. Some from strangers, some from journalists. But the ones that caught me off guard were from girls like me, girls who had been raised by housekeepers, girls who were told they were mistakes, girls who said, "Your story is mine." I thought I was alone. I read every message, every single one. I wasn't just writing a eulogy for Marta, I was lighting a path for every forgotten daughter in someone else's house. The fallout hit Vanessa hard. Her name had been removed. From the Rivera Foundation's upcoming gala to donors pulled their support. When they saw the video of her screaming at reporters outside her former home, I built this name. She's nothing without me. The clip went viral, not in the flattering way. Suddenly, all the people who used to kiss her cheek at luncheons started backing away. Polite smiles melting into silence. No one wants to sit next to a fallen queen. I didn't respond to her emails. Not when she asked for a meeting. Not when she sent a thin apology. Not when she begged for just a conversation. I didn't ignore her out of spite. I ignored her because I finally realized something. She had taught me nothing. Marta taught me how to braid my hair, how to speak kindly, even when you want to scream, how to sit up straight, how to hold grief, like a gift, how to listen. Vanessa. She only taught me how to survive the cold. One night, a small letter arrived with no return address. I almost threw it out. But something told me to open it. Inside, a photograph. Old, worn, torn at the edge. Me. About 5 years old, hugging Marta tightly. My eyes squeezed shut, my hair wild, her apron covered in flour. On the back, in familiar cursive, "She ruined your life, but she saved mine." I hope that matters more. J.R. Judith Rivera, my grandmother. Even in death, she was watching. Weigh in, and I knew she saw the choice I'd made. The Marta Alvarez Foundation opened quietly. No ribbon cutting. No flashing cameras. Just a room. Full of women, maids, nannies, widows, survivors. They stood in a circle and told stories in 3 languages. Stories about being erased. Stories about raising children who weren't theirs. Stories about leaving their own babies behind for a job that barely paid them enough to send money home. And then I told mine. I told them that Marta was never a footnote in my story. She was the entire first half. And everything I built now had her name on it. People started calling me the girl who gave it all away. But they were wrong. I didn't give it away. I gave it back. To the woman who never asked. To the woman who deserved everything. To the ones like her, invisible in aprons. Immortal in memory. When they called her worthless, she proved. Value isn't always in dollars. Subscribe. The final chapter will break what's left of your heart. The last time I saw Vanessa, it wasn't on purpose. I was walking down Fifth Street, heading to a bookstore that had just agreed to host a panel for the foundation. I had a folder full of notes, a coffee in my hand, and my hair in a bun, the way Marta always liked it. Then I heard her voice. Lena. I turned. She was sitting on a bench by the bus stop, wearing a coat that looked too thin for the weather. Makeup. Uneven shoes worn. For a moment, I didn't recognize her. Then I did, and it hit me all at once. The bitterness in her smile. The perfume that covered cruelty. The hollow ache I used to carry like a second spine. She stood up slowly. Can we talk? I hesitated, but I walked toward her. Not because I owed her, because I didn't fear her anymore. We sat. The silence between us was thick. She tried to break it with a laugh. You've changed? I looked ahead. No, I just stopped hiding. Another pause. So you're famous now, she said. The angel of maids. I didn't respond. She exhaled. I lost everything. I turned to her. No, you just never had it. You only borrowed it from people who couldn't say no. Her eyes flickered. I didn't mean what I said, you know? That you ruined my life. You did, and you meant it. I was angry. You were cruel. She flinched just once, then leaned in, eyes softer now. But I'm still your mother. I stood. No, you're the woman who gave birth to me. But Marta, she raised me. She worked for us. She lived for me. You're throwing away your own blood. I looked down at her and I saw it clearly for the first time. She didn't want a daughter. She wanted a mirror. And I refused to reflect her. I stepped back. You called me a mistake. So I gave you nothing. What am I supposed to do now? She whispered. The same thing you always told me. Survive. Then I walked away, and I never looked back. Years passed. The Marta Alvarez Foundation became national. Then global. We opened shelters in 5 cities, started legal aid, centers for domestic workers, built scholarships for girls raised in silence, each with a little gold plaque that read, in honor of the woman who loved without needing to be named. I still carry one photo in my wallet. It's not a photo of Vanessa or the inheritance. It's Marta standing in the kitchen, its apron dusted with flour, smiling like the sun. Every time I doubt myself, take it out, because I remember who I came from, not by blood, but by love. My mother said I ruined her life, so I gave the inheritance to the woman who gave me one. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe to remind the world. Sometimes the people who raise us in the shadows are the ones who deserve the spotlight.